Good afternoon, everybody. If we could just sit down. Yeah, cool. Excellent. Okay. My name's James Wright-Smith. I'm just welcoming you all to the afternoon session, and I'm going to be talking about analytics, or the little button in the left-hand corner. So if I just go through to my first slide. Before I get into analytics, I just wanted to talk to you about my role as an account manager here at Medatech. And really it's about maximizing your investment in priority, the investment that you've already made. And I do that by looking at your processes and looking at your business and trying to understand that and understand what's important to you. And then taking that back, and because sometimes it's not about selling you a module, it's not about selling you anything else. Sometimes it's just about releasing that module you already have, putting that report in you have. It might just be a 5-minute conversation with somebody that can save you literally hours of frustration just because you get something sorted for you and unlocked for you. So as I said, it's not about selling, it's about maximizing what you've already got. To achieve that, then I'm always reachable. So however you want to contact me, I know I've spoken to a lot of you, I've been out to your site, there's no substitute for actually coming out and seeing you and seeing what you do and seeing what your people do and how everything is set up. There's literally no better way of understanding your business than doing that. I'm always reachable, so do invite me on site. Give me a call, email, Teams, really happy to meet you anytime. I think as Fody alluded to. So yes, whatever works for you, really, even if it's just a 5-minute conversation. The other part of my role is that I'm your advocate in Medatech, and by extension, your advocate in priority. So we have a weekly management team meeting, and I will be the one that's putting your point of view, your voice across, and discussing what the decisions we make will mean to you and what those consequences will be, so that we can make informed decisions that make our customers happy. So I do treat that part of very seriously. And also the other side of that is bringing your ideas, not only some of the ideas that Fody was talking about earlier, so they all came from our customers, but also the ideas that you want improvements in priority. So, we have a great relationship with Yariv and the rest of the priority team, and that comes from people like myself and also from support tickets that you may raise where you want an improvement. I'm also an escalation point. Not everything goes absolutely perfectly. So you may have opened a support call and you're not getting the response that you want in the timely manner. The team might not understand that you really do need this urgently, and you might want to push on that, and that's fine. Give me a call. I am your escalation point, and I will go over to speak to Jerry or to speak to the member of the support team that's dealing with it, and we'll discuss that, and we'll see what the next steps are, and then I'll come back to you. So you're not chasing around. Similarly, if there's a project, then you might be trying to get hold of a project manager. They might be out on site with another customer. You might be struggling with getting hold of them. Let me do that for you. Let me come back to you. Let me set some expectations. Let me discuss what their priorities are, where, how we can schedule you in, all that sort of stuff. Let me do it. And the sort of final part of my job is about bringing the right people together. So we all know that priority ERP is a huge environment. It involves a lot of different people, stakeholders in your own business. It involves people in Medatech, and sometimes you may be doing an integration with a third party. You may have done an integration with a third party, or it might be your IT team that we need to talk to. If you have an independent IT provider, we might need to talk to them as well. And a chunk of my job is actually just managing people's calendars and people's diaries, because when you get beyond 3 people that you want in a room at the same time, it gets quite complicated. But I will do that for you. I will try and bring everybody together so that we can have a proper discussion, and so you don't end up being piggy in the middle, because that can be what happens. You'll be speaking to your third party, then you'll be speaking to us, and you'll be in between everybody. So let's get together, let's all discuss that, let's manage that, because actually stopping you being piggy in the middle is really, really important and will help you resolve your issues. So that's a bit about me. Hopefully I've met most of you already. So what are we going to cover today? So we're going to talk a little about what has happened since last time, and really a bit about the journey with analytics. Apologise for the J word. And really it is about when we started off a couple of years ago, I showed you analytics, and it was great, black reports, and the massive big game changer in ERP reporting, not just in priority ERP, but in ERP as a whole, was that ability to cross different forms and report upon information across different forms, and that's without having any code. Previous to that, you needed some development code to do that sort of thing. Now you don't need that, so any of your end users can do that, and that's a really powerful thing. And then last year, we spoke about visualizations, the bar charts, the pie charts, etc., and that allows you to give information. Freddie was talking about decision makers to make decisions about things, where you have such a myriad of minutiae of information in your ERP system, and creating those summaries and communicating those summaries is really important, and that's what those visualizations do for you. So what's happened since then? So Priority obviously have a roadmap of how they want to move forward with their software, and part of that is analytics. It's not the end of the journey. It will move forward, things will change, and over the past year, things have changed. So they have moved it forward, and we're going to look at a couple of those things, but also the feedback has been from yourselves. People have said, we'd really like if it did this, James, and we fed that back, and that's part of that voice of the customer within Priority and within Medatech as a whole. So that's come from that. But then the flip side of that is that no matter how much you test software, you can never recreate what everybody is going to do with it in the field. So we've had to adapt for that. We've had some fixes, and we're going to talk about at least one of those fixes. So that's where we are, and that's where we're coming from. So some of the new features and the things that I want to discuss today, we're going to talk about pivot tables. That's a really nice way to slice and dice your data. We're going to talk about expressions, and that's taking some data and manipulating it and pushing something else out so you get a report with some more meaningful information. We're going to talk about base forms, which is one of the improvements that Priority have made and is a nice leap forward in usability. And then we're also going to have a frank discussion about limitations within analytics, because that's really useful to understand what the limitations are with analytics, so that it doesn't put you off. You can understand how it's working, why maybe it's not doing something you expected it to do. So let's take a look. So one of the improvements that Priority have made is adding reports to the menu, and I'm just going to pop into the software, and I'll go to my sales cascading menu. This is our standard cascading menu, and I right-click on that, and if you look very, very closely, it's probably quite difficult to see from that distance, but there's an add user defined report, and if we do that, click on that, then it brings up our analytics. We can click on a button, we can add that to the menu, and then we get a little message saying that it's added to the sales order menu, and then if I go into the sales orders menu, we can see James added at the bottom. Because that has now gone into that menu item, we can actually add it as a tile, because that's our standard functionality with our cascading menus. So if I add that to our homepage, I've got version 25, so I've got my homepage tiles split up. Some of you may see this, some of you may not. I put that into my purchasing side, and then it should show me. Go to purchasing. Oops. We have James 2 added. So this may seem a very simple thing, but it's when you are adding a report for maybe an end user that doesn't have a lot of knowledge of the software. You don't have to go through the cascading menu. They don't have to go into the Priority analytics and search for it. You can add it as a tile, and that makes just that usability much better. So the next thing I want to take a look at is multiple lines with the same information now showing. So if I go into my sales orders, should be down here, and we query a sales order. So this is one of those real-life case scenarios that I was talking about earlier. We have a sales order with a part number mentioned 3 different times. And previously in analytics, what it was doing was just taking the top number, and it would ignore the other 2. So Priority have fixed this so that now it does exactly what it should do and report on them all. So if I just run this report in my analytics, I probably should put these all as tiles, shouldn't I? If I do these multiple lines and then run this report for that sales order number, then you can see that now we have it done over those 3 items. So we can see our 3 items. In this one, we've got our order number, our customer name, our part number, and our unit price. And then we are just going to talk about expressions, which are already added into this form. So I will have to do a little bit of jiggery-pokery, because I've just realized I should delete these. So, cancel, sorry, I need to edit. So if we look at so the information we had was our order number, our customer name, and our part number. Then we have our unit price. And then we've added our quantity as well, but we haven't got a line total. So what I've done with our expressions is create a line total. So if I go into expressions, we can see how it has calculated that. So what it has done is taken my price field and my quantity field, and I've selected those from these 2, unit price down here, and then quantity here. Then I've used this standard Excel functionality you would expect for a multiplication. You can do it as a division or an addition or subtraction. You can also create there are some functions already created that gives you convert to decimal, maximum, minimum, etc. So you can use those functions that are already in there, but it does use the standard functions that you'd usually expect in Excel. And then save that, and then I had renamed this because it just comes up with expressions, and I renamed it line total, so that makes a lot more sense when we actually look at our report. So then if we go into our report, we can see that it's got this line total, and that's a calculated value. So it's taken our unit price and our quantity and calculated that for us. And when we get to limitations in a little bit, then I'll talk about that. But it does allow you to create data that's not necessarily in the line of your the thing that you're reporting on. So that's really useful. What's the next thing? So the next thing I'm going to talk about pivot tables and base forms, and I'm going to talk about those 2 things together. And if I come out of this report and I create a new report, and I'm going to call it sales by customer. Oh, sorry, base form. So I'm going to base it on a base form, and I'll talk about that in a second. It's a table. Now I need to call it sales by customer. And then we're going to click on pivot table. You need to put it in the report name before you click on pivot table. That is an important point. So, yes, just be aware of that. So, base forms. So what Priority have done, they have amalgamated a lot of fields that you wouldn't necessarily expect to be in one form to make life a bit easier. So we've based this on orders, but as you can see, we've got our customer categories here, which you'd expect to be on the customer form. And we've got our part specs here that you'd obviously expect to be on a part catalogue form rather than on our orders form. It's not an exhaustive list of everything in the software, obviously, so we still have these hyperlinks. But what I had advised you to do in the past was to have analytics on one side and a priority screen open on the other, so you could compare where items were. That takes a little bit of that work away from you. So you can actually see a lot more information in one form, and it just makes the usability, again, of analytics far easier. So that's a bit about base forms, but I'm going to use this to move forward. So I'm going to create a report based on sales for a customer. So we're going to put in our customer number, name and number, and then we are going to put in our part number. And then we are going to put in our unit price. So that's a pretty easy standard selection. And really what I want to do is work out what people have bought what parts. So this is what we're aiming for. And crucially, how much they've spent on them. So I'm going to sort that by the customer name. I'm going to put some inputs in. So I'm going to sort that by customer name. And if you have a quick look, you can see that now on the right-hand side, you can sort in ascending or descending order, if that's important to you. And then we are going to put the grouping in there. The unit price I'm going to sum because I want a total that these customers have spent on these parts. And then I'm going to group total. And then with pivot tables, you need to select an x-axis. And in this case, I want my part numbers across the top. So I'm going to put that as my x-axis field. And then I'm just going to hide a couple of fields. So if I save that, and then I run that, and the gods of demoing work, then it comes out like this. Perfect. And what this tells you is these are all our part numbers across the top, okay, in order. And then we have all our customers down the left-hand side. And where they intersect, this customer Air People has spent this much on this part. And sometimes with a chart like this, it's more about what isn't there than what is. So this gives us a really easy idea to show what customers haven't bought, which is something that we're always asked in their sales process. How do I drive my revenue? How do I look to see what customers have bought, what customers are not buying, when they've stopped buying things, or maybe what else they are buying instead? So that's quite a lot of information, and when we talked about pivot tables, I said it was about slicing and dicing data, and I haven't really done that. So if I go back into my report and I run it again, there's a nice little feature that I don't know whether everybody knows about, but these little magnifying glasses. So if I go into my part number magnifying glass, then that takes me into the part catalogue in query mode. And in this case, I'm going to do it by part family. So I get to slice and dice my data by part family. So I'm just going to put in my part family there. I'm going to escape out of that. And then we can see this little other magnifying glass has appeared. So, and if I run that, this is my part family. So now I've only got 6 parts there across the top. And I've only got 3 customers down the side. So that means then I can have a discussion with the salespeople, etc., about what are they selling, what they're not selling. Is the reason that Southeast Driveways and Sussex Landscapes buy DGF 225 and not DGF 10? Is there some reason for that? Should we be making changes? Should we be making changes to costs, etc.? Let's make those decisions. It's about decision making, as Fode talked about. That's what data is about, and that's what summarizing and slicing, dicing data is about, those decision makers. So that's a really useful tool. You could do that with territories. You could do that with all sorts of different things to slice and dice your data. You could do that by sales reps, anything, and just get down to those reports. So it's a lovely way of actually slicing and dicing data that we didn't have before, and isn't just that kind of line by line by line by line that you're trying to interpret. So I wanted to have a conversation about its limitations, because one of the big things is you create this lovely report, you think it's going to give you everything you need, and then it says, doesn't work. And that can be very frustrating, and there can be reasons for that. And I just wanted to go through a few of those reasons so that you can kind of understand why it doesn't do what it does. So a couple of those things, we have calculated fields. So if anybody's used the project module, it rounds up what you've spent versus what you expected to spend and gives you profit at the time, that sort of calculated field. So those grayed out fields. Maybe if you're looking at inventory, then you'll have your projected inventory, you'll have the purchase orders, etc. in that grayed out field. That's been an addition of the outstanding purchase orders. They are calculated when you go into the form, and what analytics doesn't do, it doesn't log into the software. It just looks at the tables behind it, so it's not going to give you those calculated fields. And what I alluded to when we were talking about expressions, that will help you get you to that state where you can add items up. You can take items away from each other. So that will start to get you closer to those calculated fields that you might be expecting. It's similar with fields with triggers. So we've got something like history of changes. It calculates that when you go into the form, and that doesn't show on analytics either. So it does have those sorts of limitations, but there are reasons for those limitations, and hopefully you can understand that. One limitation it used to have, but it doesn't really anymore, is conditional joins. And I think this put a lot of people off to start with. If you have, say, a list of parts, you have your list of parts, but some of your customers have customer part numbers, but not all of them. Not all of your parts have customer part numbers. And previously in the past, if you created a report that listed your part numbers and your customer part numbers, it would only come back with fields where it had both of those items in the data. So if you only had one part number without a customer part number, it wouldn't show. Priority have now amended this so that it does show, so those conditional joins are now shown. So if that was one of your limitations deep in the past when you tried it out, then please do look at it again and try and see how you get on with it. So the next steps, and I think Yariv alluded to these, a couple of these a bit earlier. I had a quick word with Priority a couple of weeks ago when I was coming to do this, and they told me what they were going to actually do. So we have the AI-powered chart analysis, which is the thing that Yariv did talk about this morning, which gives you your executive and statistical and comparative AI summaries from the bar chart or the information that you've given to that, and that will be coming soon. We also have some smarter report saving. So it will prompt you if you're trying to save a form and there's something wrong with it, so you don't save it and run it. So you can, you're not going through that cyclical process. You can go back and you can actually do that, and also prompt you to save it if you haven't saved it. It's also going to start enabling you to produce AI predictive reports. So what they're going to introduce is reporting that will give you the results that you need from your ERP system so that you can then go and put that through an AI engine, just to push you another step further to that. And then the fourth thing is they're going to clean up the report privileges so you can make sure the right people are actually getting the right information and they're not overloaded with other people's information. So that's the future. So we've shown you a couple of things. Fody showed you Priority Lens earlier, and I've shown you analytics. So let's sort of take a bit of a step and look at that. If I go into Priority Lens, we can see Priority Lens again. Fody discussed this with you and talked about it, and it's a really nice functional tool. And he said you can put your priority reports and you can get a lot of information gathered into a single place. You can have various tabs to give you different pieces of information. You can have this lovely cloud table which I'd never seen before until you showed it to me, but it looked really cool. So you can have all that information in one place, and as Ferdy said, it is available now, and we'd love you to try it out with us and see what it does for you for your reporting. So we have Priority Lens, but you've just been talking about analytics. And there are two different angles of the same issue, and it's about how you use them and how you use them in your business, really. It's about what your business is doing. So if I just go back into my analytics, and we can see what we were talking about last year, because you might not remember. So this is what we were talking about last year, our visualizations, our producing our pie charts. So that's the flip side of what we got with our Priority Lens. So let's look at the differences between the two. So, analytics. Data freshness. It's a static snapshot. It's fixed at the time that you run it. It's not running it over and over again. And that can be really useful. If you want to have a meeting and you want to give out some data and you want to say, actually, we need to talk about these numbers, can you go away and look at those numbers and come back to me? Then you want a fixed point of data. You want people to be able to come back and say, yes, I understand all this, and not go, that wasn't quite the result that I got, etc. Whereas with something like Priority Lens, you might want to go into that meeting and say, let's look at this data, let's drill down together, let's talk about it. So, a couple of different ways of approaching data. In terms of visualization, with analytics, it's one chart and report per screen, and that can be really useful for clarity. Whereas you've got multiple widgets on a single dashboard, which can be really useful for taking a snapshot of where the business is. Drill down is supported on both. In analytics, you can put a report behind your chart, and in Priority Lens, obviously it's part of the software, you can drill down to further and further information. Distribution, as I said, using meetings, export it to a file. You can actually do that with Priority Lens. You can share a URL, Ferdy said, and you can give that information to people, and then they can see the information that you were looking at. So you can do distribution in both, they're slightly different. Automation, analytics is like a normal report. You can produce it, you can put it on a scheduler, and you can have that information about maybe what's changed since the day before when somebody logs on in the morning. Take a look at it. Whereas something with Priority Lens, it's always current. There's no need to run it manually, but then you're not looking at historic data. You're generally looking at current data unless it's a chart that is over historic data. In terms of analytics, obviously the big thing about analytics is you can combine multiple forms, and that's been the huge message to everybody, and you can do that in the charts as well. Whereas currently Priority Lens is limited to one form per lens, although Ferdy has said we do have the ability to change that, and he will do that in the future. Yeah, nod. So as you can see, two different ways of approaching things. And I did think about this, and I thought about, how would people use these? And I think really analytics is very useful for maybe some slightly slower moving data. So there's things that it's all about decision making, but actually it's looking at data over the past week, the past month, the past year, and making decisions about that. Whereas something like Priority Lens can be incredibly useful for decision making about the past hour, the past day, that sort of information where, I go out to customers and prospects as well when I go out to prospects, and then what they tell me is, I really want a dashboard that shows me how many work orders I've got on the shop floor, or how many service calls I've got open, who's doing what, and this is a huge need. But you can see that's people want to make decisions about what do I do in the next hour? Who do I get onto that work order in the next hour to fulfill it? Who do I get on to that service call so I can fulfill that, or daily or whatever? It's a slightly different way of looking at data. So yes, those are the sort of two differences. Analytics you obviously already have. Priority Lens we're really happy to talk to you about. So thank you. That's my talk on analytics and my encouragement for you to go out and try it again, use it. People are using it in anger and seeing a lot of benefits of it. So I would advocate it. Do we have any questions? Yes, Nigel. No, I can't hear you, Nigel.
You mentioned about sharing a URL.
Yes.
For the dashboard. Does
Yes.
the person receiving that URL need to have a license to see the dashboard?
I think it's just a snapshot, isn't it, Foley? Okay, all right. Technically, yes.
Okay. Answers my question, thank you.
Hi, when you said it's across multiple forms, is that only via the base form that Priority have already done?
No. So if you go into, let's have a look. Just bear with me a second. So if we go into one of these that we were looking at, sorry, cancel that. Yes, thank you. If we go into our fields and we scroll down, you can see this. So we've got base product number and then part catalogue. And if I click on that, it will take me to the part catalogue form, and then will give me all the forms all the fields in the part catalogue form. So the base form is just a summary. They've got a lot of the forms that they think a lot of the fields they think people will want, and put that in just to make it a bit easier, so you're not so restricted, but you can still go out and yeah.
And therefore, if you've added a custom field, does it just appear in that list?
It supports custom fields, yeah, absolutely, yeah. Cool. If there's a field in there, it will
Thank
come.
you.
Yeah. Okay. No, Liam?